Technical difficulties.
We'll start over. Literally, we're starting all the way over. The intro is like super slow right now. Hello, my name is Adrian Hernandez. Welcome to the Mile High Hockey Lab for the second time for our panel here. You're going to hear me rattle off our introduction stuff, but head on over to the website, milehighhockey.com. Follow us on Twitter, subscribe to us on YouTube, and like us there as well. All that good stuff. My initial introduction was way better, which is super sad because now I feel like
you were so
Take
good.
two. Take
yeah.
two. My bad. My fault. My fault.
No, that's not your fault. I'm glad you brought it to our attention because we would have been an hour deep and I wouldn't have pressed go live and that would have been even more embarrassing. So I'm glad you caught it. Somebody's doing their job, not me. But anyway, this is the Mile High Hockey Lab, a podcast and broadcast dedicated to all things Colorado Avalanche. I'm here with Evan, Jackie, and Ezra, three of the contributors at Mile High Hockey. We already started talking about this, and I prefaced it a little bit with, the Avs lost in overtime to the Seattle Kraken for the third straight loss in 3 games. And then I was sending the question on over to Evan. Are you concerned with that 3-loss streak, or is it just a bump in the road for you?
I'm a little bit concerned, mostly just because of the way that they've played.
Right.
Obviously, Dallas was just a game to forget. They did show at least some good fight back there in the third period, got a couple goals there, but I mean, outside of that was just a disastrous game. Just forget it, move on to the next one. And then of course Seattle, you have a lead that you take to 2 minutes to go in the third period, and then you lose it right then. But really, Seattle was all over the Avs for almost the entire game. It felt like, for that matter. So to kind of see the Avs get put down as like the way they were the last couple of games is concerning. And it's been like this, all year long. It's never really been, we have not seen very much of that dominant Avs, blowing teams out of the water that we did last season. And, while I'm not hoping for that, and we all wish that was the case, but we just want them to play better hockey than they have done, I feel like, at least for the last couple of games.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you on that in terms of it's not so much that they're losing, it's how they're losing. And I have a question like that, I think, in the script right now. So I'll send it over to Jackie, though, with this one. The Avs are going to play 13 games in 24 days with, I think, a couple back-to-backs here in March. Do you think that bodes well for a team like the Avs, who seem to be still working their way through some injuries and working their way through losing momentum and gaining it, or is it a detriment?
The only positive I can see, because I do think it will give them a lot of wear and tear, and they already look mentally fatigued at points, is that they do tend to do better when they're in a rhythm. And so I think hockey players are very conditioned to that every other day, the play and then recover and then rinse and repeat. So they actually did really well through the stretch of the back-to-backs with the extra days off and everything. So I do think that the schedule coming up will benefit them in that way. It's just a matter of, as long as it's not too physically taxing, will be the issue.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about, specifically when you're trying to get people back into the lineup. It's hard for them to come back and then go straight into a gauntlet of games where you're basically playing every other day for the entire month. Maybe that helps some guys, like you mentioned. Like, I know for a fact McKinnon has mentioned before that he prefers to play more often because, like you said, it helps the groove, get into a good groove.
Makar too.
Yeah,
he really needs consistency, and then that helps his game.
Right. So Ezra, we touched.
Side note, just about Makar. His sad comment after last night's game. I'm the common denominator when I enter the lineup. The Avs just lose. I was like, "Oh, Kale, my heart."
Don't do this.
That's
pretty funny.
Interview. That does sound.
The humble Cale Makar once again.
But my heart.
Yeah, we touched a little bit on this a second ago about not how they're losing or what that they're losing, but how they're losing. What are the things in how they're losing, Ezra, that stand out to you negatively and are cause for concern?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that stands out to me is that, especially in the Dallas game, goals were kind of finding their way in that hadn't been finding their way in recently, which I think you can take as both a positive and a negative because Alexander Georgiev is better than that. You know, we saw in Seattle he bounced back and was fantastic. They still found a way to lose, but he was fantastic. And I think like goals finding their way in is the kind of thing that happens to teams that aren't, possessing the puck enough, basically. So that's where it is a cause for real concern. Even though I do think that Georgiev would stop at least a chunk of those goals that went through on most nights. And I think it comes down to just the pace of play seems to be something that the Avs can't keep up with right now. And it's weird. It's just been 1 week of this because, before this 3-game losing streak, they were very good for a bit.
Yeah.
So I'm not overly concerned because I do know we just saw who they can be with some of these guys who are out of the lineup, still out of the lineup. But having said that, if they're slowing down because of it, then because of this long season and because I don't know. I look at what happened, and I see a team that thought they were getting reinforcements back, was gearing up for that, and then immediately lost guys again.
Yeah.
I can only imagine that's emotionally deflating. And then just trade deadline go by when you're expecting maybe some reinforcements and you're not getting those. I could see that being emotionally deflating too. So I think this team is more who we saw 2 weeks ago than who we saw last week, but last week was definitely concerning.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with you in terms of like it was looking like the stars were aligning for a pretty hot Colorado Avalanche team in the month of March with a pretty solid, healthy lineup. And then we saw Manson and Nichushkin and Francouz and Landeskog are still not progressing the way we kind of thought they were. Jackie, do you have updates on any of those guys? Or Evan, do you have an update on any of those guys?
No, you go first, Jackie. My comments will follow.
I'm trying to think what the latest would be on these guys. Let's see. Landy, he has been on the ice. I don't know about every single day, but fairly consistently. So that's encouraging. But he's just gonna have to condition for so long, even if like the knee feels good.
Yeah.
That he pretty much has to like practice hard for several weeks. So we're definitely not there yet. I still believe that they'd probably like to see him early April, and I don't think that's off the table yet. Yeah.
There he is.
Please say a little bit better than that.
Yeah.
Helm, you just
stride.
can't count on anything there. He did skate a few times in the last week, but you can't even predict what's going on there, really. Let's see. Someone said
loving
EJ
this. It
had
looks
the
like
boot.
it's slow motion. This is great.
Yeah. Someone said EJ had the boot off last night, and I think McFarland said that they would maybe have a little bit of an update on EJ this week. That's curiously the McFarland interview that never made it to getting posted anywhere.
Interesting.
So cannot verify that comment that he made. So I do feel like we'll see EJ. I don't know. The whole thing like, oh, he's definitely done. I'm not quite sure about that, but okay, let's see who else. Manson, he left the New Jersey game. Benner said he'll miss some time. We haven't heard anything else after that. So probably a few weeks there. Am I missing anyone? Well, Nuke was sick and then he played yesterday, so just kind of par for the course for him. Like all these little things are adding up where he misses a game here and there, but he's still toughing it out basically.
Have we heard anything on Francouz at all, or has it still been kind of radio silence?
I think Bednar said 3 to 4 weeks, whenever that was. So how many weeks are we about? Like 2 to 3 now?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think that was 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
So it does seem like he's still on track. Like he's at the practice facility. He's obviously not on the ice. So I'd say maybe that's fair. Like within a couple weeks. Still, we'll see. But yeah, they don't like to give us real updates. So a lot of this is guesswork. But I think that's about where we're at. So I guess to sum it up, Helm, who knows, landing EJ maybe in April sometime. The rest maybe a few weeks from now. So Real specific.
Yeah, it just feels like everything just keeps getting pushed back. I feel like of patient wife who's waiting to get married, and the groom just keeps changing the day of the wedding. Um,
Well, this is where I get into like they need to
Yeah.
accept reality. Like I said this like 3 months ago. There's no such thing as healthy. Like you just can't keep waiting for it to happen.
yeah,
It's
that's a
like
good
we're
point.
waiting for perfection. At some point, you just need to say like, this is about as good as it gets. I mean, honestly, with Nuke
Some point
back
you got to
in,
say, let's get married in Vegas. Pretty much is
yeah,
what I'm hearing.
right. With
Mhm.
Nuke back in, okay, they're missing Manson. Other than that, this is about as good as it gets. Like you just kind of have to deal with it and move on.
Yeah, I hope Evan's not getting swatted. He just got a knock at his door and left. But yeah, that's a good point. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm setting myself up for failure and hoping that there will be like a long term of having mostly everyone in the lineup. Ezra, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I mean, I think regardless of who's in the lineup, there are so many good players still that Jackie's right. We can't expect full health, so it comes down to just executing with who they have. And I don't know, the these 3 games, or at least 2 of these games coming after the deadline where they didn't acquire anybody, is definitely kind of putting the focus right on not bringing in somebody on defense, if I'm being honest. So it's kind of frustrating, but I do think that as guys get healthy and get back into the lineup, things can change. So we'll see. Is kind of where I'm not as
story of the
bullish as I
season.
was on Friday. I'll say that.
Yeah, I was feeling good on Friday. When we were doing the trade deadline, I was like, oh man, no wonder they're not making moves. Things are going right. And then in a week's time, basically, not even like 3 days, 4 days,
Yeah.
the outlook seems to have shifted. Not crazily, nothing
No.
too intense, but it's definitely been like a little slice of humble pie. Yeah.
I think
Yeah, and
for
like I
me,
said before, I still believe this team is the team we saw 2 weeks ago, not the team
Yeah.
we saw this week. But there is cause for concern because I don't want to put any. I don't think any of these losses have been squarely on the bottom pair defense in any way. That's a crazy thought, but it is very it's telling to see a Dallas team that can just throw Brad Hunt to the ground multiple times again in the game, and like, what's he gonna do? He's a small dude. He's doing his best. He's a good player, but it'd be nice to have somebody who can stand up to them a little bit. And I don't mean like a Curtis McDermott stand up to them by pretending to fight, but I do mean like just guys who can dig in a little bit harder than Brad can. And I don't know, just a little bit of another option on that third pair, like a Andreas Englund, for example.
Yeah, we man, that bothers me, the old England thing. Not that, like, just to
Yeah.
get back for just for a second. It's
Yeah,
not
not to
that we
rehash all this, but
not that we brought Johnson back, it's that we lost England
right.
it
in the
is a
We can
deal.
little
talk about this
odd
forever, but
Yeah.
yeah.
because McFarland said you can never have enough defense, and then
That.
they didn't keep the extra guy around. But what would it have
Yeah.
cost if it wasn't England? And then
That's what we just don't know. Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
that
Yeah.
part.
There's logic to how it happened. It's still like there's a missing piece.
It's more than likely the only way they would have done it, or otherwise I think they would have done it another way.
Yeah.
I think that's safe to assume. Yeah.
I feel like for me, if you have McCarr and Taze and Byram and Gerard and they're in the lineup, like your defense is going to be better than the other teams regardless.
Yeah.
And like they definitely were missing Manson in the Dallas game because he does
Yes.
bring a little bit of that physical element. And then you didn't have Nuke in that game either. So that really hurts your forecheck.
Yeah,
So I
it's
think
truly
that
like
was
all 4 players who are good in front of either net were out. So
Yep.
and Dallas is a team that is very good in those areas. So it's a tough matchup without the big guys.
but what probably the concern for me, like post deadline, and not that I wanted them to go get like Max Domi and all their problems were solved, but it's strange to me how Bednar even said that McKinnon and Rantanen did not have their best games, yet he still rode them like mules, played him over 20 minutes. He said that The New Hook line was good, and Malgin scored, and they took 2 shifts in the third period. So we're back to like totally I don't want to say mismanaged, but just it's so lopsided. And we're past the deadline here. Like, this is the reality you have to accept. The only forward you might get back is Landy. Like, this is your group, and we're back at like marginalizing the entire bottom 6.
Yeah. Which you would think that's who you want to get going heading into the playoffs, because as it always turns out, those are the two lines, especially the third line, I feel like, that usually have like those weird impact goals. Look no further than JT Comfort last year in the playoffs. So yeah, it's cause for concern, but I think, like we've all said, the team as is, I think they have what it takes to compete. I think any team with Nathan McKinnon and Mikko Rantanen has a puncher's chance. But that's not what we thought we were going to have in terms of chances heading into this regular season as defending Cup champions. So it's a little bit, I think this year for Avs fans is probably a harder pill to swallow than in any other type of situation, given that they just won the Cup. So that's going to exacerbate reaction, no doubt. I did send out the live poll of the week. And if you don't know, we send out a live poll every week on Twitter just to kind of get a beat on what fans are thinking. You can follow us at MHH_lab. You can also follow the website at Mile High Hockey. The question today was, there are 42 points up for grabs with 21 games remaining in the regular season for the Avalanche. How many of those 42 points do you think they will win? Option 1 is 27-30, which is roughly 70%. Option 2 is 24-26, which is roughly 60%. And the third is 20-23 at roughly 50%. And then the final option is less. Right now, I have some early responses. Somebody said 43. Nice. Love it. Their name is Stanley Cup champions, so they're an optimistic fan. But 34%.
I was going to say 43%.
Yeah, that's rough. 34% of fans say they'll win 70%, roughly. 50% say roughly 60. Wow, that's gonna get confusing. Half of people think roughly 60%, and 12% of voters think they'll get 20-23 points. That was kind of my point in dishing this question, because I wanted to see how reasonable it was to think that the Avs could still win the Central Division, even though just 3 games ago it was definitely on the table. But when you do the math with what's left, it's about the to keep pace with where Dallas is right now, they'd have to finish with 104 points. That would mean winning like 71.4% of the remaining games. Evan, I'll start with you. What was your answer to this poll and why?
I'll say around 60%. I mean, that's what their winning percentage has been.
Yeah,
for the last little while. So I feel like that's probably an accurate description and probably an accurate answer, I feel like. And in terms of catching Dallas, I think, especially looking at that Dallas game, that to me made it seem like that I don't know about that anymore.
Yeah.
With Dallas still being hot, and the Avs going the wrong direction, with the two going in opposite directions, you would need both the Avs to have a really good, March and April, and also Dallas to falter.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, I don't think Dallas's schedule is too difficult either, to be honest. I have to go look at it.
Actually, it's not that much harder than ours, but they do have all their games against Seattle. They have games against Edmonton. The Pacific Powers are games that they have left. Okay. Looks like they've already gotten out from under their Pacific bottom feeder games, or they've already gotten those ones out of the way. And Colorado's playing a lot of those Pacific bottom feeders. So there is still an opportunity here, I think.
Yeah. So the Avs need to convert on those chances against bottom feeders, like tomorrow night against the Sharks. And they also need Edmonton's also just in the race themselves. Like they're looking for anything they can get out of their playoff chances, out of the games that they have left. So Dallas is definitely going to be one that they're going to be circling on their calendars. So they'll definitely be fighting. Same with Seattle. I mean, that's why I said last night was probably a 4-point night for both teams.
Yeah.
They're not, division rivals. It's just because they are so close in the standings. So, it both need to happen. Both the Avs need to get better, and Dallas also needs to falter. And I don't know. We might get one of them, but we might not get both of them. You're muted,
Yeah, I mean,
Adrian.
looking at the schedule one more time, looking at ours now, at Colorado's, the big games for Colorado against, like, other than games they have to win against beatable teams, but the big games are Toronto in about a week, and then Dallas in the beginning of April. There's a bunch of games mixed in there that are against winnable teams, and some that are against playoff bubble teams, like an Ottawa or a Pittsburgh. But the real strong teams, there's only 2 games between now and the next Dallas game that look like that, which is the Kings, I guess I should include.
Yeah.
The Kings later this week, and then that Toronto game, and then after that Dallas game, it's San Jose, Los Angeles, Anaheim, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Nashville. So there's a lot of winnable games on this calendar for Colorado.
Yeah,
Dallas, on the other hand, they've got a bunch of, like I said, the Pacific Powers. They've got Seattle, Calgary. All their games against Seattle and Calgary are still yet to be played. It looks like.
Wow.
No, they've played one Calgary game, and then they've got Vegas as well, and some of those same Eastern middling teams. So it's possible. It's possible.
Yeah, and that's interesting. That's a little bit of a deeper look too, because like if you look, like you said, at the Avs schedule in the next coming weeks, it really is like Arizona, Arizona, Pittsburgh, Chicago, Detroit. There's a lot of Ottawa and Montreal in there too. So yeah, the Avs have the matchups to possibly get into the 70% of points area. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I still think 100 points gets you in, or even 98 points gets you in. So people who are concerned about the Avalanche not making the playoffs altogether, Jackie, what's your reaction to that?
Oh yeah, I think they'll make it because, it's kind of between Calgary and Nashville, and Nashville's over Calgary now, and so there's just no way the Avs are worse than Nashville. I refuse to believe it. So you're really only worried about Calgary, and they're really sinking. So I think they're a pretty good bet to make the playoffs. I mean, just even their point last night moved them up from the second wild card back into a Central Division playoff spot. So unless they really went on a losing streak, I don't think that's really on the table. So I guess in some way that's I don't want to say easier, but just takes a little bit of the pressure off that they're not going to have to do anything crazy to really solidify a playoff spot. And for the record, I also think about 600 as 60% winning percentage.
Yeah, that's because that lines up, like Evan said, with what they've done so far this year. I wonder, I'm hoping it dances in that in between those two brackets, like a 65. If you get a 65, I think you can end up with the second seed in the Central. And obviously that only matters in the first round, but it matters in the first round. And I think the first round might prove to be one of the more difficult playoff series for the Avalanche, just based on the way it's shaking up in the West. So, because it's looking like they'll either play Minnesota, they'll probably play Minnesota, right? That's what we're looking at. It's probably
Should they tank for wild card 2 and play against the Pacific?
Yeah, that's a.
Now
we're talking NBA. Now we're talking NBA stuff here, because they actually do things like that to position themselves differently in the playoffs. I don't know that we've ever heard of a team tanking in the NHL for playoff position. That's an interesting theory, Jackie.
Yeah, it's mostly a joke, but I agree with you. It would be nice if they could avoid Dallas in the first round, which if they do, at least stay out of the bottom spots. They should, third in the division, should avoid that. So, it's interesting because Winnipeg has faltered so much, and now would that be a good matchup? Maybe, maybe not. And then, like you're saying, Minnesota would be the other option. So I guess at this point, I'd rather do Winnipeg than Minnesota, but
Same.
We'll see how the rest of the 6 weeks go.
Ezra, you didn't look all that concerned when she said Minnesota over Winnipeg. Neither of
You
them scare
know,
you?
No, neither of
Yeah.
them scares me. But I also said Dallas didn't scare me last week. So what do I know? It's funny. I watch so much Avalanche hockey that I don't have. I couldn't possibly watch all the other teams. So my perceptions of teams sometimes are from 3 years ago.
Or the games that we play against them. I mean, I know the
Yeah.
Avs have played Minnesota pretty well this year. They had trouble with Winnipeg the first two, but obviously the last one went pretty well. So yeah, I guess just I think the rivalry makes a playoff series like that against Minnesota closer and tighter. Doesn't mean that I necessarily think they'll lose to them, but just when you add emotion and the rivalry aspect, I think it becomes a little bit more of a coin flip, and I don't know if that favors the Avs. But like I said, not that I don't think they're as good as Minnesota, because the talent and the team that they are should be able to beat them in a series. Just we haven't. It's weird. We haven't played them in. I don't think we played them in a series since the Miracle Year, right?
Yeah. Since McKinnon juked homeboy out of his socks.
Yeah. So it is kind of funny how it's just lined up that way with that. The Avs never played Minnesota, so maybe it's finally time for that. But
yeah, it just feels like they're gonna have to beat Minnesota and then Vegas and then Dallas because they haven't, right?
Yeah.
It just
it would
I
be
could
like
totally
the
see that.
second version of the revenge tour.
Yep.
I could totally see that. I'm trying to think who did Tampa play in their 2021 run? They had, and they always had Vegas and then Montreal because of the weird last two rounds. Yeah. But who were their first two rounds?
I was supposed to say Nashville in that weird division.
I thought Nashville had Carolina in the first round. Then
yeah, the Islanders. No, I'm pretty sure they played the Islanders.
Yeah, they did. You're right.
Right. The Islanders sound right, and then I want to say like Columbus, because I know Columbus was in it at that time.
Them, and then they never got the revenge for the sweep.
No, they did, because they beat them in the bubble. Tampa beat Columbus in the bubble.
Oh, they did? Okay, I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it was in that order we just described.
Something like that. I don't know. I'm trying to think personally.
It was. I've got it in front of me. It was Florida, Carolina.
Florida.
Oh, it was Carolina.
The Islanders.
Wow.
Okay. I'm glad I remember.
Montreal played Vegas. That's right.
Yeah, Montreal played Vegas.
That's much I forgot about that playoffs, because we don't talk about that.
It's just so messed up. Yeah.
So back up, so messed up. But I'm trying to think of like the Avs this season as Tampa 2021. That's what I'm trying to picture them as right now. Of like, because Tampa, they obviously had their challenges with the injuries. They didn't have.
We could really use like a 30-day break right now.
Or that too.
It's like they had the two weird ones. They had the bubble playoffs and then the weird division playoffs.
Yeah. So I don't know. Of course, those are very different circumstances, but I'm also just trying to think in that mindset of like, if Tampa did this, we can too, right?
Yeah.
Fighting the injuries, probably going through some of the hardest teams. I mean, when you look at Tampa's run, Florida, Carolina. Yeah.
Well, they
Florida,
haven't won
Carolina.
the division in a while, right? Like that year they got swept by Columbus. Wasn't that the last year they won the division?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
In that wild 2019 playoffs, but.
So it doesn't even matter to them to win the division. I think that's the takeaway that you can have to like compare us to them is it doesn't really matter. They don't need the top seed. They don't even need.
They're going to play Toronto, and we know it.
You know what I mean? That look at how Tampa's done the last couple of days.
Yeah.
I have Steven Stamkos on my fantasy team, and I'm just like,
they've been terrible.
Damn it.
Yeah.
But
wonder if they're tanking to not play Toronto in the first round.
They'd have to tank pretty far.
They would have to tank pretty far.
Because they got to fall all the way to the wild card, and they're like
that matchup has been guaranteed for like a month.
Yeah,
I just hate that so much. No, it's been guaranteed since Christmas.
You're right.
So
it's because just Boston running away in combination with the 2 and the 3 running away from the rest of their division. Yeah, kind of like the Avs.
It's just stupid. To me, it's anti-competitive. Like Bettman loves the parity and how like every game matters and everybody's still in it till the end and blah blah blah. And it's like this is the antithesis of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. So I'm just trying to think of the rest of the season like this, and just hope really that it
Yeah.
works out in the end.
Yeah, and I wrote in our notes the equivalent of what Dallas is on pace for is 104 points. The Avs would have to win 15 out of their remaining 21 games to do so. We said a couple months ago that we didn't foresee them having like a very strong January and February, but that was not true. They kind of picked things up in January and February. So who knows? Maybe they'll do the same in this month of March, because it's the month where you are going to string wins or losses together. There's no way it's not going to happen. And I remember the focus for the Avalanche last year was don't lose 2 in a row. That's been left behind a little bit this season. So you could tell that their outlook is probably a little different too. I think I'm pretty optimistic though. I think the Avs have, like I said, when you have McKinnon and Rantanen and even I would argue Gorgiev, you've got a puncher's chance, because we saw Gorgiev kind of come to life in his rebound game against the Kraken, and if not for him, that probably would have been a not even as close of a game, and they probably wouldn't have gotten the overtime point. So I'm optimistic. I would tell fans just to take it easy and let it play out, because it always does. We'll move on to our conversation about the new guys. One of them not so new, but new this season in Jack Johnson, and then Lars Eller, number 20 for the Colorado Avalanche. What are your thoughts on Jack Johnson's return, and how has he played so far in your mind, Jackie?
I think he's been all right. He's played a lot, which I don't even think he really played that much when he was here last year. Like, I know in the playoffs he was definitely around to like 8 or 9 minutes. I wasn't expecting that, but I wasn't quite expecting like 19 either.
Yeah.
I thought he maybe more in the middle, like 14, 15 or something like that. So that surprised me a little bit. I think he's done all right. I think they are kind of asking a lot of him in some ways, especially with now Manson's out again. Like, they definitely do need him. So, like I said, I think he's been all right. He's made some mistakes. Like, it probably is hard to like recondition the Chicago Blackhawks out of him.
Yeah. What about
so,
Eller? What do you think of him?
Eller's tough because I doubt he was brought in to be really flashy or make a lot of plays, but he just hasn't jumped off the ice to me at all. And like, it was a tough situation in playing in the very first game, and he just showed up. And but I don't know. It is hard because they've lost every single game, so it's really hard to be like,
it's
wow,
been going
this guy's
great,
really good.
Yeah.
But I am a little bit concerned that he's kind of slowed down, and
Mm-hmm.
I just don't really see him making plays. And if he's going to play center, you'd at least like to see a little bit of playmaking, especially considering, there's not a ton of skill in the bottom six. So I guess especially considering what they paid, I hope for a little bit more.
Rounder.
Like, we're not just looking at like a fourth liner here. Like, they brought him in to play some real minutes. So I would like to see some offense at some point. Like, he scored 1 point this calendar year. It's a little,
that's scary.
Concerning from the offense standpoint, but I'm not writing him off, not at all. It's like I said, it's been a tough week and situation for him. But if you paid what you're paying him and you're going to play him the minutes, then hopefully he can make that bottom six a little bit better.
Yeah, Jackie, you mentioned that he's not really playing to like the worth of the second round pick. I think it was in 2025 that he was exchanged for. Evan, do you think that that's true? And if it's true, what does a performance that's equal to that value look like for Lars Eller in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, Jackie already said it pretty well. He has not lived up to standards, and I think it's funny. Jack Johnson, Jack Johnson, Lars Eller, they both come to the Avalanche. Oh, we're gonna do so well. Oh, it's gonna be awesome. We're joining a new team. They're super good. Immediately lose their first 3 games. So maybe they're just like the bad luck charm or something. I don't know, but like, I don't know. I think definitely for the price that we paid for Eller, and especially when you look into the other move like Nick Menino, I pointed that out in our roundtable today. Like the price that was paid for him,
right? A seventh.
That's a really good price. That's a really good deal, and that's it it in my mind thinks that they overpaid for Eller a little bit, and so when you look at what to get out of him, because that's the tough part, I feel like, because you talk about like getting the playmaking in the bottom six, right? And like trying to create from down there and get scoring from there. He's almost trying to be like a mini JT Comfer from last season, I feel like. And the two I feel like they don't correlate well together. Like you can't really compare Eller to Comfer. Like I feel like there's just such a big gap there between Comfer's second line play and then Eller down there on the third line. So that's definitely concerning. Maybe, and like I said, it's only been 3 games for Eller, and they haven't been great. In his first game, I kind of just pushed that one aside because he showed up half an hour before the game started at the arena, coming straight off an airplane. So, hopefully the next week looks better. I would like to see him get, at least probably like an assist or something like that. Maybe he just hasn't found the right pairing. And I know that Bednar too has kind of been shaking up lines a little bit, especially last game against Seattle. So maybe just trying to figure out the best fit for him still. Too.
I also feel like, considering what they paid, that he's a re-sign candidate. Now he obviously has to earn it.
Yeah.
But I kind of think that was their thinking, especially since they don't want to let Manson go after bringing him in, and he could have definitely just been a rental. So I hope he's good enough to re-sign, because that means he plays better.
Yeah,
I hope so too. I didn't think about that. I mean, Eller's what, 33, right?
Yeah.
I feel like he'd be like a mini Helm or like a Helm replacement. I feel like at this point would just get
have we been bitten by the idea of short-term contract for an older guy who seems to be slowing down? Not that I think Helm was really slowing down, but physically, obviously, he has in terms of recovery time.
That's the difference between the two players for me. Is Helm had the speed to be exactly what Bednar wanted in the bottom six, and Eller has never been that guy. So I don't know.
Hopefully Eller doesn't have off-season surgery.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully he becomes more of the Andrew Cogliano 1-year signing, because he's been good. I've thoroughly enjoyed Cogliano down there. Like that was a good 1-year deal. I feel like especially when they signed both players back in the offseason, I would think that they would go with Cogliano over Helm, but they went with both.
Right.
And I was like, okay, whatever. I guess we'll see how they do. Obviously one has fared a lot better than the other.
And one has had off-season surgery, and the other one didn't.
Ezra, Evan mentioned that like maybe it's a matter of him not finding the right line mates. Is there like an ideal line that you see him, or a group of individuals that you see him with?
It's tricky because I feel like what was working about the third line with Newhook at center between O'Connor and Cogliano was speed, really, and that's something that Eller doesn't bring. So I like that line. I would be interested to see what that line looks like together again. Mm-hmm. I liked what they tried with Malgin and Newhook and Rodriguez yesterday. I don't know. I haven't looked at the stats yet to see how it did. So I wouldn't want to necessarily put Eller in with Malgin and Rodriguez either. I see Eller as a good player who does a good job at what he does well, but I don't really see a lot of line mates that fit him stylistically outside of Cogliano and O'Connor, which is what they've already been trying.
Yeah.
So I think it just has to be those guys finding a fit together, because those are the 3 guys who play the most cycle game in the bottom 6, and that's Eller's strength. So basically, I just think it's going to take time, not necessarily juggling the lines.
Yeah, I think that's the most mature takeaway from what we've seen so far from Eller. Yeah, I know, the comedian. I just called the comedian mature. What are we doing over here? But I think you got to find out. And what's unfortunate for Chris McFarland is he might be wrong about both of them. And the Avs fans will have it out for him. I made a kind of a backhanded meme today that was the cars swerving off of the highway, where it says the exit sign leads to fire Bednar, fire McFarland, fire Sakic, and then the stay on the highway sign says rational reaction. and the car is Colorado Avalanche fans swerving into the fire everybody lane. But
Well, for me,
Did you-
it's odd that they think this is all McFarlane's fault. Like,
yeah,
like things drastically changed
it's still both of them. Yeah.
when they changed titles. And the other thing is, like, outside of last year, when they did have a good and aggressive or more aggressive deadline, they've never had a good deadline. All the deadlines that Sakic had before last year were pretty poor.
Soderbergh.
So I don't.
That's
So just saying like,
Como.
oh, McFarlane screwed up, it's his fault. Like, hello, the
Yeah.
deadline always sucks.
Yeah.
it is the veteran depth ad move that's been
Yes,
classic. And what they
exactly.
did differently last year was look at guys with term, which I think what or not necessarily with term, but RFAs or guys re-sign candidates, I should say. And I think it's just an opportunity thing this year more than it is a change in beliefs. Because if there was a guy who fit like that, they could have got him. But that guy on the market this year is Tanner Janot, who we don't want.
Yeah,
So
no, thank you. Well, they also
you know,
didn't have
and
it. They
and
didn't
shouldn't have paid that
have
much for.
Yeah.
2 top D
Yeah.
prospects and current
Well,
second round picks to trade.
Yeah. No
right,
draft
right.
equity
The
to
opportunity
even
cost
play
is,
with.
is
Yeah.
not reasonable to expect. But yeah, I mean they've spent those assets already. But I don't know. I didn't get a chance to speak on Jack Johnson. So real quick,
Yeah, go
he's
ahead.
been fine. I mean, he turns the puck over every once in a while, but also he every time pretty much recovers and like dives and pokes it away. So you don't obviously want your defenseman having to dive every shift, but he's done a good job out there, I think. And
Yeah.
he's been exactly who I would expect.
Yeah, you
which
see
is
the
totally
veteran
fine.
moxie in that recovery to mistakes, which I think is what makes a veteran a veteran. It's like you're gonna have those blunders every once in a while, but it's how you respond to them that basically earn you a long-term career in the NHL. So that's a good assessment. Evan, I didn't have you mention anything about Jack Johnson. Do you have any comments?
Yeah, I was gonna say Ezra touched on it really well. That he's been good defensively. He's obviously been asked a lot of. I'm in the similar boat with Jackie. I didn't expect him to be playing almost 20 minutes a night, but just because of the state of the Avs defense, I guess that's just kind of how it is. And I feel like if Bednar is going to trust anybody to do it, it would be him.
Yeah.
But
for a veteran, he fits the system pretty well. Like a lot of guys at his age, the end of their career, might not work at all in the system. Like it even took Manson quite a while to really get indoctrinated into the system and be able to execute it. So I can also see from that standpoint, you just know that it's so funny. Like Jack Johnson is this punchline outside of our circle, and his analytics are pretty terrible, but he just works in this system. We have seen far worse. Like if anybody has experience watching terrible defensemen, it's us. So
no, I mean you're exactly right though. Like, and
Don't remind me.
If he's doing exactly what he's doing and needing to do, then great. I would have liked to see him finish that chance that he had last night against Seattle, where he just mishandled the puck, right there in the slot. Because boy, could you have imagined coming
he's good on
back?
breakaways. Like
I know.
I don't know if we've discussed that his like career shootout percentage is like 42%. It's like ridiculous.
Really?
Wow.
Yes,
Oh my
like when he was with Columbus,
That's
he actually
amazing.
took quite a few shootout attempts. So I'm not talking about out of like 7 attempts. No, he's up there in like 30 attempts or something like that. Like when he was with Columbus, that was
That's
actually something that they went with, and it worked. So that also explains how he was able to score that first goal against Chicago last year. Like he's got a breakaway move or something. So it is possible.
We
It's
saw
kind
it
of
against
easy to
Chicago.
forget that peak Jack Johnson, was like the prototypical offensive defenseman. He was so good in his prime. It's really easy to forget that. It doesn't surprise me that it does surprise me that he's taken any shootouts in the last
Right.
decade, but it doesn't surprise me that his shootout percentage would be high from back then.
I couldn't believe it when I saw that. I was like, is this a typo?
That's crazy.
No.
He was traded 1-for-1 for Jeff Carter, who was a superstar. Like he was a good player.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
That's
Okay.
true. I didn't even think of that.
Would Jack Johnson have featured in the shootout if they'd gone to a shootout last night against Seattle?
No, but I
No.
think,
No. But
I think if it
15
ever
years
got
ago, yes.
past 5 or 6 deep, I mean, what, either him or Nieto, like options are gonna dwindle pretty quick. So why
Yeah.
not?
I honestly
Yeah.
might take Jack Johnson over Matt Nieto in a shootout. I
Yeah,
honestly might.
Nieto would come in slowly down the wall and just shoot it.
Probably.
That's
No, I'm being
a
harsh to
futures
Nieto.
bet
He's-
if you've ever heard one. Jack Johnson to score a shootout goal for the Colorado Avalanche.
They'd
One of
probably
the
get you a
payouts.
lot of money if I had to guess. Oh my
But if
gosh.
he gets the chance, it sounds like it's just a matter of him getting the chance at it. If he's
That's right,
40% on it.
42%, that's wild. Oh my gosh.
Uh,
That's gonna be in some NHL trivia like for like 20 years down the line.
Yeah, I'm
What was
gonna
Jack
write it in this
Johnson's-
crappy book.
what was Jack Johnson's shootout percentage? And there's gonna be like, I don't know, there's gonna be 69%, 2%, 42%,
Yeah.
and like, I don't know, 15%. And people are gonna say 15 or 2% out of the very few chances that he got.
So if it happens, you heard it here first. Thanks to Jackie who dropped the information on us. And thank you, folks, for listening and tuning in today. This is the Mile High Hockey Lab here with Adrian, Ezra, Evan, and Jackie. I'll have Mosier tell you guys who you are, who we are, real quick.
Get the whole name right. Mile High Hockey Lab. Now, I don't know what that means.
That's us. That is us. I had to that's a backhanded way of getting Mosier to say our name, but I figured it out one way or another. So before we end the show, I just kind of wanted to do an open-ended segment. I know, Ezra, you mentioned in our chat that you had some words for a certain person's performance against the Dallas Stars. You want to start with that?
Oh, sure. Oh my God, that Dallas game was Dennis Malgin's worst day as an adult. I don't understand what happened there. The goal where he literally has it on his stick and tries to clear the zone, and then it just doesn't. It doesn't. It's there, and I think it's like Ty Dellandrea or I don't know, somebody who's not even good for Dallas just is like, oh, I'll tap that in. Thank you. Keith Kincaid's pads. I also want to talk about. I'm sorry. How are they still gold? He's been here for at least a week.
What are we doing?
I just can't
Yeah.
believe in the NHL that. And how does everybody not have just like a white set?
Yeah.
Right. Like, yeah, for real. Like, what are we
Maybe
doing?
it's
You
like
got to
a-
have one generic set just in case, right?
He has the
Yeah.
helmet, but he needs everything else.
But I mean, I love Malgin getting a goal in Seattle to bounce back from that terrible day. But did y'all see what I see? Was Malgin just being asked to do too much?
No, you're absolutely right. Like, and especially on that goal, because I called him out on Twitter for that on our Twitter account.
Oh yeah.
And people were not happy with it. I was like, he just left it for him, and like, why? So
He had time. It was crazy.
It was ridiculous. But I will
Yeah.
say, and actually to kind of go back to your point, Ezra, about like trying to figure out where Eller kind of fits, that line with Newhook and Rodriguez and Mulligan that they played yesterday. I mean,
Yeah.
it's set up that second goal. I mean, Rodriguez, had a really good puck battle there on the wall, and was
Yeah.
able to knock it, to Makar, and then of course Makar's beautiful pass, down the
Oh, yeah.
line or down, stretch it to Mulligan. I mean, that was beautiful. And then also for some reason the athletic writer for Toronto was retweeted us and was like, it's so cool to see two superstars, working together. And of course, talking about Mulligan and Makar. And of course, some people in his comments are going, they went, oh, I only see one superstar, and then there's Cale Makar too, and it's just like, oh my gosh, Toronto.
It's fun.
No.
Toronto.
So Toronto. So
I'm pulling up
I
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say I agree with Savannah. So hi Savannah. That color combo was absolutely terrible.
Yeah, Savannah Lincoln says, that color combo was so bad. Yeah,
it was so bad. I mean, to be fair, it did kind of, because at least when they were playing on the road, right, in their whites and with the yellow pads, it almost like maybe could have fit the reverse retros. But
yeah,
they
would fit the
you're
reverse
right about
retros.
that.
Oh, the reverse retros for sure. Yeah,
but
with
the yellow is
yeah.
just not quite exactly right. And of course, it's like a trim of yellow anyway.
Yeah.
On those reverse retros. So it would have been, outlandishly yellow if he ever wore the reverse retros while also wearing his Bruins gear. So
It might go okay for the Eagles because they have the Colorado.
They have
same
the yellow,
flag
yeah.
colors, so that might look a little bit better. But I know we're not picking on him because it's just kind of the way it is, but it just seems silly in today's NHL.
Has Kincaid played yet for the Eagles, or is it
he
just been
didn't.
Okay.
Our analysis of that trade was pretty far off based on how everything
I am
has
shocked he's in
shaken
the
out, right?
NHL. Yeah.
It's and I'm shocked too. I didn't think we were that far off by thinking what we thought.
What did we exactly say? I mean, I kind of feel like they're just calling up different guys. Like I bet it's JoJo's turn.
Yeah,
tomorrow.
well, this is I think right after it happened is when Undunen was about to get his start, which sad face. So it felt like Kincaid was more of a person to be put into the AHL goalie mix so that Undunen or JoJo could make the jump in a more effective way and a more long-term basis with Francouz out. But it just hasn't shaken up that way. He's playing because Francouz is out. And Undunen, although he seemed to kind of get himself right towards the middle and end of his start, he really did kind of look out of sorts to start the game. And I think that kind of might have tinted a little bit how the organization views his development and his readiness. Ezra, you seem like that kind of causes a reaction.
I feel like he got left out on an island to start that game. And yeah, he didn't handle it super well, but I wouldn't put I mean, any goalie giving up 5 goals on the first 15 shots, that's on them a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take blame off of him, but the first goal is just brutal coverage, and then the second goal is just brutal coverage, and then the third goal is brutal coverage. So, I don't know how much you can really
well, I think
but I did want to sorry, go ahead, Jackie.
I was going to say after Georgiev gave up basically the same the next night, doesn't maybe quite look as bad.
Yeah, it's true.
That's right. But yeah, I think ultimately Kincaid shakes out as an AHL goaltender, but he did get some time. I don't know. I want to go back really quick to the Rodriguez, Newhook, Malgin line because I pulled up the natural stat trick for the game against the Kraken, and that line was actually, of lines that got more than 1 minute together, that line led the team in expected goals for percentage. And you know who the second line is? The second place on that list is Cogliano, Eller, O'Connor. So maybe this bottom 6 really works. Obviously, that does mean that Mikko and Nate were a little bit off, but wow, it's nice to see that the bottom 6 was working.
Yeah, their expected goals was like 15%, so it was not a good night.
No.
I'm interested then in that case because I didn't even realize I didn't look at natural stat trick. I didn't realize that it was that high, I guess, for both of those lines. So I'm interested then to see how that will play out, not on the second night of a back-to-back, because I think that definitely needs to be taken into account too. That they're coming out of a back-to-back where they just got blown out in Dallas, and obviously, well, the Avs were going to play hot. No English, Evan. Well, the Avs were going to play, come out of the gate. They're going to try and, give Seattle everything that they've got. It's still, they're still going to be rusty and tired. And, and to kind of go back to Mikko too, we could also probably touch on this too. His antics, man, getting that misconduct penalty at the end of the second period. That's at least 3-4 times now this season that he's done something like that. And I know Bednar said he talked to him both in the intermission and he's also talked about it to him like before, but man, that's just something you can't control. Like,
we didn't talk about him showing the ring to the fan in Dallas.
That was great.
Yeah,
that was really good.
I wear it on this one here. Yeah.
Like I get it that he can't lose it on the refs.
He hates losing.
He's just never going to win that battle, but I do kind of like the fire and the passion for Mikko.
I do too. Don't get me wrong. I think it's just needs to be not directed at referees.
We saw a little bit out of Nathan McKinnon a few years ago and in the years past, other than really last year and this year, and even a little bit this year when he got checked in the corner a couple games ago in Chicago. And he wanted to drop the gloves with a guy who'd literally never fought before in his entire career. So I think like Jackie says, it points towards a competitive streak. It points towards a guy who doesn't like to get embarrassed and who is likely kind of frustrated with the way that Dallas game was shaking out. Um,
And they weren't
and
calling anything. Like, I don't think in the 3 games that they just played and lost, obviously, they haven't really had a penalty called against them that wasn't like delay of game or high
Mhm.
sticking. You know, there wasn't any like interference or holding or hooking, tripping, etc. called in those
That's
3 games. And
interesting.
I think that's how that kind of feeds into Miko's frustration because Dallas got away with a lot. That first
Oh,
period with a
man.
They
lot of
did.
late hits. And so I think that it kind of builds up because he gets so mad because like people are holding on to him and things like that, and then that's how he retaliates. So I'm not saying like it's okay, but I kind of get where he's coming from too.
And he
But
got that extra penalty in the first period when Hakanpää took out
That's right.
I don't remember who, Lehkonen, I
His
think.
Lehkonen.
And then Rantanen just kind of gets in his way to say something and gets called for a penalty for something after Hakanpää cross checks into the ice. I'm sure he said something bad, you know, but that's going to frustrate you. You get a call for that, and then obviously it doesn't work out later to double down and yell at the refs, and they've already called you for a penalty like that. They're going to do it again, obviously. But I kind of empathize with him more than I do say anything to the negative, because like that game was crazy for the Avs to not get a power play until there's 5 minutes left in the game in a game that's that chippy. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, that's so interesting that we bring this up because I hadn't even thought about this. But last year, a lot of the naysayers of Colorado pointed towards the fact that they led the league in power play opportunities. And interestingly enough, this year they are bottom 15, it looks like, in power play. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, they're 14 from the bottom. So they're definitely bottom 15 in power play chances.
So that's 18th, yeah.
Yes, and crazy enough, this is led by Ottawa, Edmonton, Detroit, Tampa, Pittsburgh, Florida, LA, and Boston right now.
It seems like the East maybe gets more penalty calls.
Yeah, and to put that in perspective, last year the Avalanche at the end of the regular season finished with 279 power plays. They currently, yeah, that's a ton, and they currently have been on 192. So they'd need 80 more power plays in the next 21 games to get as many power play chances as they had last year.
That doesn't include the playoffs?
Nope, that's all regular season right there.
Holy cow.
So
that's ridiculous.
Why?
Landeskog draws a lot of penalties.
I guess, right?
He does draw a lot of penalties.
Jost, yeah, Jost, that's real. That's
he did.
No, because Jost is for real.
So we need a penalty drawer, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah,
it is curious though. Is it?
That's a huge change.
Getting, I'd say when they're not playing well, like that.
That's part of it.
That's part of it. Like the New Jersey game,
skating
I'm not
well.
as maybe they didn't play that game as well. But the Dallas game, like Ezra said, there's no way that Dallas did not commit an infraction, committed no infraction in that game.
No.
So is it, when they are playing well, because they've had stretches this year where they played really well and their speed should draw them power plays.
Yeah, always, right?
So we're looking at the balance of the season thus far when they've basically played more good than bad, and there is such a deficit. So it is interesting, like, are they getting called differently? Because the talent's still there and the speed and everything, so you would think that, like,
I wonder,
that would still happen.
Does winning change the way refs view you?
I think so.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
It's not supposed to. Refs are supposed to be impartial, but they're not. They're
humans.
No, they're not.
Yeah. It's like, I wouldn't be surprised at putting myself in their shoes. It's like, you guys have been there, done that. I don't need to give you anything.
Yeah.
And
especially, like, I feel like specifically with Rantanen, he has been doing this all year where he yells at refs and, he does a lot of chippy stuff and then gets mad when he gets called for it. And chippy stuff gets done to him and he gets mad when it doesn't get called. And he's not wrong. Like I said, I'm empathize. But also, if a ref is going to see a guy slash a guy and then get slashed and be like, hey, why didn't you call the slash? The ref's not going to give you any benefit of the doubt. He's like, come on, idiot. I see what's happening. So I don't know any stats about Rantanen specifically drawing penalties changing or anything like that, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's getting a lot less calls than he used to. And it definitely seems that way just thinking about it right now.
Good point.
I think to add to your point, Adrian, just about referees not not wanting to help because you won, I'm just gonna say a few words. Game 4 and Game 5, John Cooper.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Too many men on the ice. But I will tell you this: it's been wonderful talking Avalanche hockey with you three today. In fact, I would go as far as to say as it's.
Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Yeah. How sick are you guys gonna get at those drops?
I'm like regretting telling
never.
you about StreamYard.
How dare you show me StreamYard? Don't worry, I'll change it. I'll get a couple
No,
more.
I'm kidding. It's fun. I love it. It's great.
I was in the crowd when Landy said that, and I loved it. I didn't even
Me too.
care
I
that my
recorded
dad,
that.
I didn't even care that my dad was next to me. I was, we were both just loving life. So
Yeah.
I'm never gonna get sick of it. Don't worry about it at all.
Yeah, I'm 100% kidding. It's great.
Yeah. No, I never take you seriously, Ezra, unless you have that
Good,
really
good.
serious look on your face. But yeah, thank you three for joining me. This has been the Mile High Hockey Lab, our 18th installment. I titled it March Mania because I feel like I can't say March Madden anyway.
Yes.
And copyright. Good night.
But yes, thank you for
March
listening.
McDonald's.
To our March McDonald's broadcast. We will be back with you next Monday at 3:30 Mountain Time. Hopefully, if that's not the case, we will inform all of you. Be sure to like, subscribe, and check us out on Spotify and Apple Music. We are there in our recorded form. And yeah, go Colorado Avalanche. We'll see you in about a week. Lovely people. Thank you.
Mile High Hockey Lab.
Mile High Hockey Lab.
Lab.